And I wasn't set on co-housing when I was looking around, but once I saw this place and met people, I decided it was really what I wanted.
For generations, the United States has faced challenges to its physical surroundings and social fabric resulting from human-caused climate change.
This animation shows the variation of nitrogen dioxide emissions from the 20th of December 2019 to the 16th of March 2020.
To economic and racial inequality.
The system of white supremacy is what's upholding police being able to put their knee on our neck and nobody gets prosecuted.
We relied upon the American way to solve our cultural ills through rugged individualism. It didn't help that the earth stood still during the COVID-19 pandemic, further dividing an already isolated world. There must be better places and ways to live rather than struggling through life individually.
Let's get the hell out of here.
As soon as we can get back on our feet, we'll come back to New York.
I can't be in this car anymore.
Welcome to the Elysium community.
What about intentional communities? While there are many variations that include co-housing and housing co-ops, those that apply what I call the secret sauce emphasize collaborative relationships, agree on common values, share community spaces, and are organized with flat leadership and self-management structures. When all those ingredients are mixed together, communitarians make decisions by consensus. Communitarians commit to being part of a community for mutual benefit and cultivate a culture of sharing and caring. A few months into the global shutdown, I spoke with several people who live in a community about their experiences and how living in collaboration with others has helped them to avoid some of the loneliness that others in traditional neighborhoods may have experienced.
From the beginning, I've really believed in approaching co-housing from an anthropological point of view.
I was born and raised in a small city in the province of Buenos Aires, in a sort of a family co-housing.
But by my mid-20s, I moved back to the US and was living in San Francisco and was living in a shared house, but not a cooperative. Started dating my partner, Megan, and she was living in this cooperative, the bus stop co-op.
All of a sudden, I thought about selling, getting rid of a lot of stuff that I had in this giant house, and having less things was attractive to me, and living close to things that I could walk to.
Co-housing is really about where, how, and with whom you spend a whole lot of your time.
I was excited to try it out and try out an intentional community and see how it worked out for me. And now I've been here for almost 4 years. It's the longest place I've ever lived in my adult life.
I come from a family, I have a large extended family that I'm actually very close to, but they are all over the country and the world. And so they're not there on a day-to-day basis. And I think a lot of what we're doing in co-housing is recreating a different kind of tribe.
How can we use the knowledge we gained being isolated from family and friends and get back into sync with how we were meant to live in harmony with our environment and with each other?
It happens that one of our residents and neighbors and friends is a full-time practicing nurse. She brought to us in a very methodical and responsible way a major heads up about what she was thinking about and worrying about as a professional in that field. And you can go down to the Common House today and you'll see that flip chart with what she said back then. And darned if it isn't mostly right.
Philosophically, I think the thing that's kind of really, I'm really curious how society and larger society deals with this. It could either be the impetus of like, yes, we need good, solid health care. We need people to be able to take sick leave so that we protect each other.
That's easier said than done, considering that the American way has been with us since birth.
Superman fights a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way.
What does that mean? We are culturally expected to solve problems on our own, strive to win rather than lose, and acquire more wealth and consume more resources.
$20,000 a year? You wouldn't mind living in the nicest house in town? Buying your wife a lot of fine clothes? A couple of business trips to New York a year?
Or it could go to a place of fear and, damn it, I'm going to do my own thing and nobody's ever going to tell me what to do, right? I just think it's really important for most humans to have some sense of who's there to back me up when things are hard, or when, trying to do it alone is a really lonely way to go through life.
It's the American way to pressure people who are different to assimilate and not be accepted for who they are. The American way has meant the single-family goal was to live in large detached suburban homes, which has been the norm since World War II.
So here's the home that cost its happy owners just $9,000. And that includes such extras as a completely equipped kitchen.
Cohousing dictates, again, whom you're going to get to spend a whole lot of time in a way that wouldn't be the case if you live in an apartment in New York City and maybe don't know your neighbors. If you live way out in the middle of nowhere in a rural setting and don't have any neighbors. Or if you live in a suburban environment where in much modern housing, you actually drive into your house because you use a clicker and the door opens and then you don't see anybody.
That isolation became more evident when a consequence of the pandemic was loneliness.
I want to be alone.
Where have you been? I suppose I can cancel the Vienna contract?
I just want to be alone.
You're going to be very much alone, my dear madame. This is the end.
According to Psychology Today, 40% of the population is isolated and lonely.
I'm regularly in touch with my neighbors here at Silver Sage. I'll often go hiking with someone, or even just walking around the block or chatting across the patio.
Coupled with possible unemployment.
For Black Americans, unemployment rose to 16.8%, its highest rate in a decade.
And housing uncertainty.
With 6.5 million renters still behind on rent, having fallen behind during the pandemic, it is deeply concerning that we will have a wave of evictions and housing instability this summer and fall.
In general, no pandemic necessary. And that leads to about 10 years less life in your lifetime.
And sometimes I talk to my friends back in Maryland and they'll say, I'm so bored, or I'm feeling so isolated. And I haven't. So I've appreciated that aspect of being in community.
Regardless of whether a communitarian is one of many homeowners or apartment renters in cohousing, or in a shared co-op house with others, they balance privacy and community by choosing their own level of engagement with each other.
So I'm used to living around other people and really enjoy having both my own privacy and being able to shut the door and being able to step out the door and have the community that I don't have to drive or arrange for.
Pre-COVID, everyone lives busy, full lives, and so I found we needed more structures to make sure that we were all getting quality time in together. We would do house retreats, go get a cabin somewhere for the weekend, or house work days or house parties. Less of that formally now because we're just around each other so much.
It's to be surrounded by people that you care and by people that you want to spend the time with. And that's really important, because even though with the coronavirus we have technology that allows us to be still in contact with people all around the globe, with our family, with our friends, and to know that you can count on people, it's also very important.
The way that our building was designed was so great for this, because we have a courtyard in the center of our community, and all of our condominiums front doors face into the courtyard. So basically everybody could step out of their door and stand on a walkway and pretty much see each other. We're on 3 different levels where the houses are. And so we can like sing together.
I feel more thoughtful, and I feel actually more discretion in how I spend my time. And part of that, I guess, is just you've got the enormity of this death-delivering phenomenon globally.
You just stop thinking about material things and a lot of things that are very superficial.
It sort of puts one's little perspective in the proper context among 6.5 billion people, or whatever the planet's population is, and our worries and things that we think are important pale in some extent to the stress that's really out there.
Communitarians withstood the pandemic by staying connected, which leads to more efficient lives. Self-management empowers residents, builds community, and is more efficient because of shared resources.
We have one lawnmower for 34 houses. We have one swimming pool for 34 hours. We have well over hundreds and hundreds of things that we share that makes it, including a great garden and including great fruit trees, lots of things that make our lives better.
We have a thing called Mitzvah Squad, and people will prepare food for someone who's recovering from an illness or take them to doctor's appointments.
Co-housers live in separate dwellings that include private kitchens and baths. They agree through consensus to collaborate in the upkeep of their common property, like courtyards, gardens, and community spaces like common houses with a central kitchen and gathering rooms. Similarly, some housing co-ops, for example, rent out rooms as private living spaces, share work, make decisions by consensus, and maintain common spaces, but share bathrooms and a kitchen.
I think one of the things most of us are pretty grateful for is that none of us live alone, because this would be really hard to do emotionally and spiritually, to be alone. And we have, and it's not just like one other person, like our partner. We have, right now there are 6 of us in the house. So you have 5 other people to interact with.
I just think makeshift communities are going to start coming, and it's going to kind of help people. In the most part, we'll start to kind of reach out to neighbors and check in and just become closer with their so-called like communities that are just around them.
And I think that this new normal has put all the people, if they don't connect with fear, but to change their destiny. And I think that has woken and opened a lot of eyes.
Over the years, the secret sauce recipe has evolved into a condiment that enables all people who seek safe and affordable housing in a community to be a renter or a homeowner.
A global pandemic was in nobody's plans for 2020, right? And so I think it's the unexpected. How do you deal with the unexpected?
Where living in community can be a really great thing is that all of us had really different levels of understanding of the disease, and some of us were not really paying attention to it. Some of us were paying attention to it very closely.
So whatever's coming at us, I want to be around people where we have an open conversation, where we're not working from a place of fear, and we can figure out between us what's the best ways to go at anything.
And so what ended up happening is the people who are watching it really closely and got worried a lot earlier made sure that the house was prepared well before even like the local government was telling us to prepare.
On top of it all, the American Way has added to human-driven climate changes.
A climate in peril, priming the already fire-weary West.
That's more likely to be the future crisis, is, climate issues that come up as climate change, all that's predicted to increase. And we've spent a lot of time over the last 2 years really trying to harden our buildings and do, really try to optimize so that we're in better shape if a fire does come through.
When it comes to living more gently on the planet, the secret sauce provides a philosophy of simplicity and sharing. Communitarians swap everything from tools to furniture to kitchen appliances. Deeper collaborative connections mean we are called less to consume.
Common denominator for sure is that the residents who live in cohousing believe that by giving cooperation the benefit of the doubt, at least entertaining the possibility on any given line item, their own life might be more convenient, more practical, more economical, more interesting, more fun, more healthy.
The sense of belonging fills a space within us that can never be filled with owning more stuff.
I enjoy sharing resources. So not only are we sharing the house together, and we're sharing food. So I eat really well because we buy our groceries together. We have a set list that we work with.
If we learned anything during the COVID-19 pandemic, it was the importance of face-to-face interpersonal connections that were taken for granted until they no longer existed.
If you can really know what you're getting yourself into and know that you are part of a community and what you say matters and what you do matters, and yeah, you're gonna have people in your back pocket and in your extended family for life.
And I feel a lot of security in otherwise uncertain times, and a lot of joy and camaraderie. And I just encourage folks to find that in alternative living arrangements in any way they can.
Before a group is formed, people need to be conscious about what they want to do in life, what they want to be, what's their why, in order to make the connections. I mean, like the frequency of people to get together to make it easier.
As social and economic divides became more evident during the pandemic, communitarians bridged those chasms by reimagining the American way.
This is what democracy looks like.
The lessons out of this to move to a more equal society, or it really shows up. I think what the pandemic has really shown is we are all intertwined globally.
I think that the pandemics brought our country's problems more into focus. The healthcare, with all the issue that's going on with healthcare in the system, and the racial and economic inequality. I mean, I've chosen to live here because I believe in being cooperative, being collaborative, and in making decisions that we come to better solutions if we're listening to different points of view. And I would really wish that for the wider world.
So if we don't take better care of each other, we don't take very good care of ourselves.
The secret sauce enables open and honest communication skills that respect diverse opinions without judgment.
And you get to have those deep conversations about your present, about your future, and I don't know, to get to know one another more deeply. And I think that strength makes the connection even stronger.
What I think it really does for me is I know all my neighbors, and I can tell you their stories too. I know where they came from, I know their families, I know what they're involved in. And so for me, that is a real comforting to live around people I know and not strangers.
One secret sauce ingredient is participatory decision-making based on consensus. In consensus communities, all have an equal voice, including the few. Proactive communication is critical for a healthy democracy to thrive.
Frankly, because it's small d democratic. We have to make decisions together. We have to talk things out. We have to come to agreement.
In terms of governance, we're very autonomous. Broadly, we work on consensus.
And so there are a lot of opinions at the table. You know, diversity is strength. And it sometimes seems like a pain in the neck while you're at it, but it is strength and has been to me.
I'd say like most of the people in my community are like above average, like really involved. We've done a really great job the way we're organized and all the activities they do.
The secret sauce means that all residents can play roles in raising their village children by sharing childcare, hand-me-downs, and parenting advice. Children raised in a community can access the wisdom of elders.
But yeah, I was born and raised in cohousing. It helps me as a young child kind of growing up. It helped me learn how to communicate with a broad range of ages, which I think has helped me now going into my career and my life. I think I'm definitely good at communicating with a wide range of people.
We've been on site for going on 14 years, and we've seen the full cycle of life. We had 1 month a couple of years ago where we had 2 deaths and 1 birth, all on the property in the community.
The secret sauce provides a hedge against isolation that improves and prolongs our lives. The pandemic aside, 3 in 5 U.S. residents report being lonely, which increases chronic stress, heart disease, dementia, depression, and anxiety.
For people who live in neighborhoods where they don't know their neighbors, or they're working from a place of fear, it's just much, much harder to deal with the uncertainty of this time.
We have a lot of things that I think if we had been like individuals or like just a nuclear family, maybe wouldn't have had access to those resources. So I think it's like we're a lot more resilient in terms of dealing with something like this pandemic.
Just with all of this coronavirus uncertainty, I just want to stay where I am. I feel really safe in my community with all these people who care about me, and we can support each other. It's really, I'm very lucky to live here.
Collaborative living and community living really sets you up for a meaningful life.
The secret sauce makes it possible to reimagine the American way. Consensus decision-making makes community members intentionally share, collaborate, and are accepting of all.
The globality of this virus will make people think harder about alternatives to the standard types of housing that we've already talked about.
This is my theory on cohousing. To live in cohousing, it's not always easy. I don't know, you have to, I think, show emotional intelligence.
Guided by the lessons of the COVID-19 pandemic, the secret sauce can help shape our homes and neighborhoods to withstand the next crisis.
Water officials believe the past 3 years could end up as the driest in California's history.
COVID-19 will provide more impetus for people to be creative about who they live with, where they live, and thus, and the type of community it is, and thus where they spend their time and energy. And that's a good thing.
And care about community and the good of the many instead of just your selfish behavior. So I think that those kind of people, somebody who can live that way is more of a resilient person.
You don't have to be in love with the people you live with, but it gives you the skills to learn how to connect with people meaningfully, learn how to set boundaries, learn how to communicate directly. And those are useful skills in life in general with all of your relationships.
I just want to stay where I am. I feel really safe in my community with all these people who care about me, and we can support each other. It's really, I'm very lucky to live here.
The secret sauce adds to living spaces where people and the planet are honored and not exploited, where proximity is a catalyst for intergenerational communication, and where humans are valued, not for what they produce, but simply for being who they are. If you are called to a deeper, more meaningful way of life, and one who is kinder to our planet, you are not alone.
It's a welcome change for me from the world, which feels like a very me world, to really being able to think, what can I contribute? What will I get from it? And what can we as a community do to make this what we want?